What's going on, guys, and welcome to another video on the channel. Today we are doing a driver tier list for the 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The second race of the season is now done and dusted, so just like I did in Bahrain, we're going to be ranking all 20 drivers that took part in the race from S tier to F tier of how they did in the race. So let's just get started with this one. Starting off with Alexander Albon. He finished in P19 in the end, had a failure that I think he ended up coming into the pits and stopping. He had like a brake issue. He wasn't able to brake properly into the corners, and yeah, he did a whole lap with basically no brakes, which is pretty crazy. Up until that point, I think he was running around P12, P13. The qualifying wasn't great for the Williams drivers. I kind of expected them to do a little bit better at a track like this. Usually their straight line speed is a really good thing, and at a track like this, that's, it's a very straight line speed heavy track. But Williams didn't seem that great, but in the race they looked a little bit better until Albon's issue. So because of that, I'm just going to stick him in C. He didn't finish the race. He didn't get, I don't even think, halfway into the race. So I think he was doing decent up until that point. So I'm going to put him there. Next up, we've got Fernando Alonso. Now this is an interesting one. Last time I put Alonso in S tier because he got a podium with the Aston Martin. Pretty crazy. Now this race, after all the debacle of being on the podium and then not being on the podium and then now back on the podium again, he has got another podium, another third place finish here, 2 in a row. But that Aston Martin does look like a much better car. Could he have done anything better, really? No, which is why I am thinking about, and to be honest, he did actually get the lead at the start of the race from Perez. So I think I've got to put him in S tier, don't I? Because he didn't do anything wrong. Oh, no, he did. Because he wasn't in his grid position by a long way, actually. He was a long way out of his grid position. He qualified third, but ended up second because of Leclerc's penalty. So he had a good qualifying. He had a good race, but he did have that start thing. Do I really want to knock him down to A just because of not being central in the start box? I don't think I do, because all in all, he had a very good race. Apart from that, he didn't put a foot wrong, and I mean, although he was way to the left, I don't know. I don't really want to penalise him too much because of that, so I'm putting Alonso in S tier. Next up, we've got Valtteri Bottas. Now, I don't really know what happened to Bottas. I wasn't really keeping an eye on him. I don't think we really saw him at all in the race. He ended up finishing P18, which was the final position for the cars that finished the race. He came in towards the end for soft tyres for some reason, and then didn't set a fastest lap on those soft tyres, which is kind of what I was expecting maybe he would do, just to take a point off the Red Bulls. But that wasn't the case. He wasn't really there with Zhou the whole race from what I can remember. I don't really know what happened with Bottas. I don't want to be too mean to him, but at the same time, it was a pretty poor race. He just was nowhere, seemingly. And he got beaten by Zhou in qualifying. I think I'm going to put him in E. I'm not going to put him in F. He didn't crash, and he wasn't crazy, terrible, but it wasn't a good race from Bottas, especially after, P8, I think, in Bahrain last time out. So yeah, it's going to be an E from Bottas. If there was other circumstances as to why he was so far behind, then maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I don't think there was. I think he was just a bit off it this weekend. Then we've got Nick de Vries, who finished in P14. Yeah, it was okay from de Vries. He did a decent job. Once again, convincingly beaten by Tsunoda. Well, I say convincingly. Beaten by Tsunoda in qualifying. De Vries was like P19 or something again. And Tsunoda just missed out on getting through to Q2. The gap in the end was about 10 seconds. Pretty much exactly 10 seconds, actually, between the two of them. I don't think you can. It's his first season in Formula 1. I don't think you can be too harsh on him. So I'm going to put him in C. I think it was fine. That AlphaTauri doesn't look great, so I think it was fine. I don't know where I'm going to put Tsunoda, though, so that's going to be interesting. Next up, Pierre Gasly finished P9, same position he finished the last race. Yeah, decent. I don't think he had the best qualifying, or did he get through to Q3? I can't remember. But he ended up finishing just behind his teammate, like 2 seconds behind his teammate, not even. So I think, yeah, I think I'm going to put that as a B. I think that was decent. Alpines were actually pretty decent this weekend, but still didn't really have anything on. There was a good 10-second or so gap to the Ferraris, and then quite a bit more to the Mercedes and the rest of the field. But the Alpines were decent, and I think Gasly did a good enough job. Hamilton, P5. All right, another interesting one here. So beaten by Russell, he did kind of a different strategy to Russell. He was on the medium tyres at the end of the race, whereas Russell and a lot of the others were on the hard. And I think Hamilton started the race on the hard. So yes, maybe not great at the start of the race for Hamilton because of that. He did then catch up to Russell. He was, Mercedes actually gave the order to Russell of let Hamilton pass, he's quicker. And Russell pretty much went, hey, no. At the time, he thought that Alonso still had the 5-second penalty from the grid position issue. Turns out he didn't, but then Russell just put his foot down. And he just kind of, yes, should Russell have, questioned the team? Questionable, but in the end, he put his foot down and he kind of ran away from Hamilton. He finished almost 6 seconds ahead of Hamilton in the end. So I think for that, I've got to put Hamilton in B. It's not a bad performance still. He didn't have a good qualifying once again though. So it wasn't great in that regard, but yeah, I think I've got to put him in B. I think maybe his tyres did go off a little bit at the end, but yeah, Russell just flew away from him in the end, so I'm almost considering C, but I think that might be a little bit too harsh. Nico Hülkenberg finished P12, and I think he started P11. Didn't really see a lot of the Hasses. They had a little bit of a battle, the two of them, Hülkenberg and Magnussen. In the end, Magnussen came out on top. I'm just going to stick him in C because didn't really see much of them. Next up is Charles Leclerc, P7 for Leclerc. Now he ended up P2 and he was only just over a 10th off of pole position in qualifying, but of course had that 10th place grid penalty, so he started P12. He got himself up to P7 and then pretty much got stuck behind his teammate. There was quite a big gap in the end actually. I don't know what happened there, but there's a good 8-second gap almost between Sainz and Leclerc. I don't remember there being quite that big a gap, but it was when he did get right up to the back of Sainz. He did seem quicker, but Ferrari just didn't seem interested in letting him past. So all in all, is it an A because he's finished 7th? I mean, yes, he's come up from 12th, but I think I've got to go B. I mean, it's not really his fault, and the Ferrari did not seem to have good pace. I don't know why he dropped back from Sainz at the end, but maybe I will put him in A. He's not really... Yeah, I'm going to put him in A. He had a good qualifying. He would have been up there ahead of Sainz if it wasn't for qualifying. And the fact that he did manage to catch right up to the back of him, I don't know what happened at the end, but I think I'm going to give him an A for that. Kevin Magnussen in P10. He actually scored Haas's first point of the season. Big battle with Yuki Tsunoda for a lot of the race, and he did end up coming out on top in that battle and kind of pushed away from Tsunoda a little bit in those last couple of laps. So I'd say for Magnussen, yeah, car was decent. He was actually very close to Gasly. Oh no, he wasn't. He was 10 seconds off. It's not that close. Is it an A though? I don't know if it's an A. He didn't beat Hulk in qualifying. I think I'm going to go B. A bit more difficult to do the rankings this time compared to Bahrain, I feel. But yeah, I'm going to put Magnussen in B. Kind of interchangeable. I think he did a pretty good job. He had quite a few attempts at getting past Tsunoda and messed it up a couple of times, so maybe that relegates it down to B. But yeah, all in all, it was pretty good from him. Lando Norris started P19, I think. Finished P17 out of 18 finishes. Bottas was in a world of his own at the back. He had contact on lap 1, which wasn't 100% his fault, but he did have contact. Piastri then had contact on lap 2. They both had to come in for a front wing change. They ended up with each other at the end of the race. Remembering that Lando also didn't get out of Q1 because he hit the wall, and then he ended up getting overtaken by Piastri at the end. And I think Piastri was on hards from what I remember, and Norris was on mediums. Might have been the other way around. Once again, it could have been the same as Lewis, where the mediums, if that was the case, were going off. But to be honest, I think, yes, McLaren was not good this weekend. Definitely not good this weekend. And he's been very unlucky, but he has also had issues. The whole qualifying issue was his fault. And I guess, although I can't say the contact in the race was really his fault, if he did get out of qualifying a bit better, where the car should have been, really, because, I mean, Piastri ended up in Q3, then he wouldn't have been in that mess. So I'm going to put Norris in E. I'm going to put him with Bottas. Do I go D? I think I've got to go E because of qualifying as well. I've got to go E. Sorry, my phone with my race results on it is messing up a little bit. Yeah, it's harsh. Lando's like literally my favorite driver. McLaren's my favorite team. It's a struggle at the moment, but I've got to put him in E. I just don't think he just didn't have a good race. And he got overtaken by Sargent as well, or just didn't get past Sargent. I think he was already behind him. Esteban Ocon ended up P8, just ahead of his teammate, a couple of seconds up the road. Yeah, I think I've just got to stick him in B, same as Gasly. The two Alpines were pretty good, and they were pretty close to each other the whole race, so good from him. Sergio Perez ended up winning the race from pole position. Now, if Max didn't have the issue in qualifying, would he have gotten pole? Maybe not. Probably not. In the race, though, he had really good pace. Verstappen, I mean, on the last lap had really good pace. Seemed to have an issue in the middle part, but then all of a sudden he was able to push for the last lap, for the fastest lap. So, as much as maybe Max did have an issue, I'm still going to give Perez an S because I think that was a really good, clean drive from him. Yes, he didn't have a good start, getting overtaken by Alonso, but once he was in the lead, again, he just went for it, and yeah, really did show some good pace this weekend, I think. Even if Verstappen did have issues or whatever, he showed good pace, and he won the race, and it was pretty much redemption for last year, so very good from Perez. I feel like I'm taking a long time here, so we've got to get through these a little bit quicker. Oscar Piastri, he, like I said, got into the top 10, P10 in qualifying, really, really good. Then had contact on lap 1 or lap 2, came in for a front wing change and was down the back of the grid. Did manage to beat his teammate though, and I don't think that that contact was his fault, and because he didn't stuff up qualifying, and because he did manage to beat Lando, I'm putting Piastri in B. Yes, he came P15, but the McLaren's terrible. He's beaten his teammate. He's done better than Norris for sure this weekend. It's a B for Piastri. George Russell, I'm going to put in A. Ends up being a P4, briefly a P3. He held the silverware for all of a couple of hours, but then Alonso got that podium back again. I think George did everything he had to do, was right there in the fight with, kind of in the fight with Fernando Alonso, and once he put his foot down, managed to breeze away from Hamilton, so I think that's where he's got to sit. Carlos Sainz, once again, I think just like last time, I'm going to put him in C again, just like I did in Bahrain. He ended up P6, and like I said, I don't know why he ended up 8 seconds ahead of Leclerc in the end, but he did get caught right up to it. I mean, when you consider that he started 4th, has finished 6th, that's also with Lance Stroll not finishing, and Stroll probably would have beaten him. And then Leclerc catching right up to the back of him. It's got to be a C. Sainz is not doing what I think he should be at this point of the season. Logan Sargent, really difficult one. Not great qualifying, but to be fair, Williams weren't good in qualifying at all, so I can kind of go all right with that. He had some really great battles in the race, and was showing some really good pace in the middle stint of the race. And then towards the end, he was just falling back, way to the back of the grid. Like, he was up in like P12, P13 at one point, and then he ended up being right at the back with the McLarens. I think he may have overdone his tyres a bit, but all in all, I think he did a decent job. I'm going to put him in C. Lance Stroll, seemingly was doing a very good job. Got overcut, I think, by Sainz in the pit, but also did an amazing move on, I think it was Sainz, in the race around one of the hairpins. And all in all, I think he would have done a pretty good job had he have finished. So I'm going to put him in A. I think it was a good job from him. Sonoda is difficult because he just missed out on that P10, but I think I'm going to put him in as a B because he fought like mad with Magnussen for that last point. And yeah, I think he did a good enough job. Verstappen, of course, qualifying wasn't his fault. Car issue, started P15, got himself all the way up to P2, didn't make his way through the field as quick as I maybe thought he would. And then in the end, I don't know whether he had an issue or what, I don't know. He put a blistering lap time on that final lap. So P15 to P2, I mean, you've got to put him in S. I mean, he did a very good job, and yeah, I don't know, he had an issue or whatever it was, but P2 after starting P15 is a pretty good job. And then final driver is Zhou Guanyu. He was in that battle for the kind of P10 at one point, fell back a little bit behind Hulkenberg in the end for P13, but all in all, it was a better weekend than it was for Bottas, and I don't think there's anything really to write home about. He was still 10 seconds off, 12 seconds off P10. So I think I'm just going to go for a good old Alfa Romeo C here. Didn't see a whole lot of him apart from when he was in that battle. And yeah, it was fine. It was decent enough from him. So there we go. That is my 2023 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix driver tier list. We've got nobody in D tier this time. Maybe Norris in D, but I'm sticking with him in E because he really did not have a great weekend. Yeah, not really much else to say. I think it was a decent race. Not quite the epic that we would have hoped from Jeddah. You know, we've had some pretty crazy races there in the past, and this definitely wasn't one of them. I'd say this was quite easily the weakest of the 3 races at Jeddah we've had so far. But yeah, hopefully Australia, my home Grand Prix, is going to come good next time out. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.